Yo, what's up, y'all? Kind of a long time no see. I went out of town for about a week and came home to about literally 1,000 emails. So I've been really busy getting back to you guys. Did a radio show yesterday, which was phenomenal with Dr. Dan Kalish. We talked about brain drain and neurotransmitters and all kind of fun stuff. So make sure you guys check that out. I owed you guys a video. So this is the video I owed you guys like maybe a week and a half ago, finishing up the video series that I was doing about gut bacteria and the GAPS diet and Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride's lecture at the Weston A. Price Convention, or conference I should say, in London. This is the book right here, and here's the DVD right here. Both of those are available at undergroundwellness.com. And so the most frequently asked question was, all right, we know what not having enough good bacteria in the gut can do to us, so what foods should we consume? And that's what we're going to cover today. First of all, you want to make sure that you eat real foods. You can go to gaps.me, so that's GAPS.me, and learn all about the GAPS diet. It's a little bit different than the Jerf30 diet that's in my book. There's many different phases of it as well, but in a nutshell, just eat real food. Get your jerf on, meat, poultry, fish. If you do pork, do it. Make sure it's really high quality pork. Shellfish. If you do shellfish, go for it. Make sure it's good, high quality, wild shellfish. Fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, good quality dairy products, lots of water. I mean, that's what we want to consume. Real foods, that's ideal. When you're eating processed foods with sugar and, excess starches in the diet, I say excess starches, not starches alone, but excess starches, you're feeding bad bacteria that may be in there, and that's going to give you a problem. I think the only difference between the Jerf30 diet and the GAPS diet was, starchy vegetables like tubers and whatnot, she says feeds the bad bacteria. But try it, see what works for you. There is no one size fits all diet out there. That's why we have the body language logs in The Dark Side of Fat Loss. But anyway, aside from my book, let's talk about this one. So I know that we have an audience that's all around the world, and so she gives a fantastic list of some of the fermented foods that you can consume to bring more good, healthy bacteria into the gut. And real quickly, there haven't been refrigerators and freezers around forever. So prior to those, when people lived on, XYZ food supply and they couldn't refrigerate or freeze it, they had to make it, last as long as they could. And so, for example, the example that she gives in her conference is take cabbage, for instance. Cabbage grows at certain times of the year. You eat it, and now you may have an oversupply of it. You just don't want it to go bad. And so what did our ancestors do? They fermented it. Because when you ferment foods, it preserves those foods. We've done some shows on it. I'll link the show that we did with Jenny McGrother about fermentation right below there. I think it's called What is Fermentation, I believe. I can't remember, but click down there. I'm not going to act like I'm a huge expert on this. Click it and you can learn all about it from an expert. But fermentation was incredibly key for people, surviving and being able to preserve food so they can, have some nutrients and also be able to stock their bellies with the good bacteria. So real quick, let me take you through. I think I have a bookmark. Here we go. This is on page 165 of Gut and Psychology Syndrome. First and foremost, sauerkraut. We're all familiar with sauerkraut. I made a video several months ago making sauerkraut, which is really fun, something that you can do with your kids. And again, that's fermented cabbage. Table olives and salami are fermented meats. In Russia, if you're in Russia, you can use kefir. If you're in Armenia, you can use mazun, which is M-A-Z-U-N. Russia and Asia, you can use kumis, K-U-M-I-S-S. If you're in India, you can consume more lassi, L-A-S-S-I. If you're in Sardinia, you can have more Gioddu. That's Sardinia. Well, however you say that. Yogurts and cheeses is something that you consume. Make sure it's from good milk. I know we talked about the difference between A1 and A2 milk and how A1 can be harmful for some people. To be honest, I need to find out the answer to this question of if you ferment those types of, or I should say A1 milk, the harmful milk, does it still have those negative properties? Can it still be harmful for you? So that's something that I have to figure out. I have to learn about. We asked Keith Woodford about that when he was on my show, and he wasn't even sure, and he's the author of Devil in the Milk, and so I'm trying to get to the bottom of that. Let's see what else we got here. Fermented fish. You may see those on recipes, you know, like, or menus, I should say, at Korean restaurants, Sweden, Japan, and Russia. Fermented grains. When you ferment grains, you actually remove a lot of the bad stuff in there, that you know, the phytic acid, the anti-nutrients and whatnot. Doesn't get rid of the gluten, though, so you got to make sure that you're fermenting gluten-free grains if you do have a gluten problem. Fermented soy. In Asia, see, the soy that we consume here in the States is primarily, you know, unfermented soy, which has many problems. But in Asia, they consume miso, natto, tempeh, tamari. Those are foods that are going to have beneficial flora in you that are actually good for you. So remember, fermentation means more flora. Very key. Now, a lot of you guys are out there thinking, well, what about, you know, I don't want to eat these foods. They taste nasty and da-da-da-da-da. Is there any way that I can get this stuff in a pill? And absolutely. You can take a probiotic supplement. And probiotic supplements I use with pretty much all of the clients that I work with. There's a couple brands that I use. That the primary one is from Bioimmersion. We use the Supernatant Symbiotic. We also use the original Symbiotic as well. One is a capsule, the other is a powder. But most of you guys aren't working with me. You may not even be able to get access to those. And so what I get is something called... this isn't an endorsement. They didn't pay me to do this. It's just something I pick up when I go to Whole Foods. It's called Ultimate Flora. And this has 15 billion bacteria in a single capsule. And that's considered a therapeutic dosage. It's right here on page 171 of her book. An adult should have around 15 to 20 billion of bacterial cells per day. So that's exactly what we have in here. Now, I'm going to recommend that you take one of these every day. Absolutely not right now. I'm going to recommend that you start at a lower dosage because this is a therapeutic dosage. See, when you go to, you know, your local health food store and they have all these different ones, you know, there's the ones that are kind of for the general person who's just trying to keep his gut kind of healthy. And then there's the other people or the other products that are therapeutic that really have a lot of bang for your buck and a lot of bacterial cells in there. I'm going to recommend that you start with maybe something on the lower end. Like, for example, there is Gyrodophilis. Gyrodophilis, you can get it at Whole Foods. It has, I believe, 3 billion per capsule. So start with, that's a word with friends, I'm an addict. Start with one and then gradually build yourself up to 15 billion. So gradually build yourself up to 5 capsules. And the reason why I say that is because when you start taking probiotics, they go down into the gut and they start killing stuff off. They start killing off bad bacteria. They can start killing off parasites. And these things don't like to go without a fight. And so they start making toxins and whatnot. And you get something called like a die-off reaction. The specific word for it is a Herxheimer reaction. So you don't feel so great. So a lot of people will take their probiotic and be like, oh my God, I took that and it made me feel horrible. Well, it wasn't really the probiotic. It was the fact that you had so much bad stuff going on in your gut that was dying off that gave you the reactions that you had. And so starting at 15 billion probably isn't a good idea for most of you guys out there. Start on the low end at 3 billion, gradually build yourself up to 15, hold it there for 60 to 90 days, 120 days until you get the benefit that you want, then gradually lower yourself down to a lower general number of bacterial cells, so back down to that 3 billion. So that's all for the day. That's the end of our gut flora gaps diet video series, and I'm gonna come back next week and we'll talk about fat loss and leptin and insulin and all that fun stuff. And so remember, you can get the first chapter of my book, The Dark Side of Fat Loss, my ebook, The Dark Side of Fat Loss, at darksidepreview.com. You can order it at www.darksideoffatloss.com. I'm gonna put some links down there. Somebody on Facebook was really cool and gave me the link to the actual Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride lecture. It's on the internet somewhere. So I'll post that down there for you. I'll also post the What is Fermentation radio show for you. And I'll post a link to the sauerkraut video that I made so you guys can learn how to make sauerkraut at home. I'm out of here, guys. Peace.